Shakur Stevenson, the greatest fighter I've ever seen. Beautiful style,
Yes.
great technique, has the punching power.
135 that you would want to match Zepeda with.
The one fight I would love right now is Haney. I would love to match him up with Haney. They will never take it. Trust me, they will never take it. I would love to face him against Pitbull.
That'd be a good fight.
In all Mexican war. I would put him against anybody right now. Shakur, the only one that I is Shakur. Shakur, he's a bad. Shakur's good. He's actually really, really good. Tank, would love to face him against Tank. And he's great as well. I mean,
what's going on, you guys? So Shakur Stevenson, Oscar De La Hoya, over the last few days, I went back and forth over on Twitter regarding the Zepeda Shakur fight. Oscar came out saying, oh, talking all that mess, but you turned down the fight, or you turned down the contract, and since that news broke, a lot of people have been coming out making videos, and a lot of, Shakur haters, people that want to push these false narratives are going to come out and say things like, Shakur is a bad businessman, Shakur this, Shakur that, Shakur's ducking. And I've seen quite a bit of videos already, and I can only watch a few minutes of it, before I know what their agenda is behind what they're saying. But there was one video I did watch, and I did agree with, and that was Everything Boxing's video. He did a breakdown on this whole situation, and how Zepeda really has been the one ducking, and Shakur is the one that, in this situation, he has every right to, hit up Turkey or be upset, with this offer that was sent, especially if him and Turkey had a conversation, before him signing with, Eddie Hearn and whatnot. They put in place a number for a potential Zepeda fight, and now it's time for that fight to happen, and that number isn't the same number that, was told to him. So Shakur has every right to be upset about it and to, vent and complain or whatnot, but like I said, a lot of the haters, the critics out there are going to paint the narrative that, Shakur's this, Shakur's that. But in all reality, Zepeda has been the one who has clearly avoided this fight. And I couldn't quite remember it 100%, but after watching that video with Everything Boxing, started clicking again. I remember him saying, he's having a baby soon, so he can't make the fight happen. And then, fast forward after the first Tevin Farmer fight, he hurts his hand, right? And that puts a postponement on a Shakur Stevenson, Zepeda fight. But come to find out, a couple weeks before or after that date was scheduled for Shakur and Zepeda, he ends up fighting Tevin Farmer again. So it's like, you throw that out there, and then you throw in certain comments that Oscar's made over the years too, when it comes to Shakur Stevenson. I mean, I recall a couple different videos where Oscar De La Hoya is praising Shakur Stevenson, saying, he's the most skilled fighter I've ever seen, or this, that, and the other. And then in another interview, I think he said that Shakur Stevenson poses the greatest threat in the lightweight division when it comes to matching him up with a William Zepeda. So I don't know how you can look at this whole situation and think of Shakur Stevenson's ducking. I don't know how you can say that he's greedy, or, whatever you may say, whatever these false narratives are that a lot of these YouTube channels are coming out with. I don't know how you can come to that conclusion when everything that we've seen thus far has shown that Oscar and Zepeda don't want this fight to happen. And one thing that Everything Boxing touched on that, I agree with, at least one of the scenarios that he put out there when it came to, Turkey giving Shakur the number that, he didn't agree to initially, right? So one of the things that Everything Boxing touched on was the first scenario being Oscar approaches Turkey or hits up Turkey saying, hey, I don't want to make this fight happen. How do we save face? I don't want to make it happen, but Turkey looking at the situation like, okay, I got a better relationship with an Oscar De La Hoya than I do with Shakur Stevenson, because there's business to be made with an Oscar De La Hoya. He's a promoter. There's future fights to be made, this, that, and the other. And then the other scenario that Everything Boxing touched on too was Turkey, did put out a pretty big bag for Shakur Stevenson when it came to, the Josh Padley fight. And we all know that Josh Padley was a late replacement. That fight wasn't supposed to happen because Kid Austin was supposed to fight, but he pulled out 3 or 4 days before the fight actually happened. So the thing that he touched on in that video was, hey, since I gave you this big of a bag for a Padley fight, I got to pull back a little bit on this Zepeda fight. And, hopefully these two fights, they equal up to the number that I initially gave you. But I don't know. No one knows. I mean, those are speculations. But, I mean, thinking about it logically, I would think that Oscar did approach a Turki Al-Sheikh and said, hey, I don't want to make this fight happen. And what you see on, Twitter with Oscar coming out saying he's, turned down the offer, all of that is just to save face, make Oscar and make Zepeda not look like a bunch of ducks. But all in all, man, one thing I did like that Shakur Stevenson is, considering doing is going to the WBC and forcing this fight to go into purse bid. If he's not getting the offer he wants, hopefully the WBC comes with a better offer. Who knows? But regardless, Shakur Stevenson said he wants this fight badly, and I think ultimately he wants to prove a point to the whole lightweight division and also a lot of his critics. So I hope the fight gets made. We'll see. But who do you got winning? How do you look at this whole Shakur Zepeda situation? Is Oscar capping, or do you guys think Shakur is capping? Let me know what you guys think. Hate, like, comment, subscribe.